Assalamu alaikum, my little ones. We are going to continue the story of Muhammad. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Let me hear you say sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Last episode, we knew that the Kuffar returned from Al-Habasha, very angry they hadn't been able to convince the king to send the Muslims back to Mecca. They decided they needed to think of a new way to hurt the Muslims so that they would leave Islam. One of the evil Kuffar finally said, "I've got it. I know what to do. There's still Muslims here in Mecca, and Muhammad and his family are still here too. What do you guys think if we boycott the Muslims? We won't buy from the Muslims or trade with them, or sell them any food either. That way they'll starve to death, and then they'll have to leave Islam. And we won't marry from them either, or sit with them, or have anything to do with them, not until they go back to worshipping the idols. Not until Muhammad's family turns Muhammad over to us so that we can kill him. Only then will we go back to being their friends, and things will go back to normal." The other Kuffar thought this boycott idea was an excellent idea. "Let's write it down on a paper and hang it up at the Kaaba. That way, everybody will know the plan and stick to it," they said. And so they wrote down their evil plan and hung up at the Kaaba. The poor Muslims went to buy food, but the Kuffar wouldn't talk to them, or even sell them any piece of food. And the Kuffar wouldn't buy from the Muslims either. The Muslims wouldn't have money, and so the Muslims had very little food. They began to grow weaker and weaker and lose weight. When they got very hungry, they had to eat the leaves of trees. Sometimes, though, traders outside of Mecca would come, and they would agree to sell some things to the Muslims. The Muslims would go secretly and buy some food. When a Muslim was able to get food, he or she would share it with all the other Muslims, because a Muslim has the best of manners, and he loves for others what he loves for himself. For 3 very long years, the Muslims endured this boycott, staying in a small valley called Shib Abi Talib. For 3 years, they struggled to find food and eat, but even though things were very hard for the Muslims would not give up and leave Islam. No matter what the Kuffar do to us, we'll never stop worshipping Allah. All the Muslims cared about what Allah likes, so that they could go to Jannah. When things were hard, the Muslims would remind themselves that Jannah had everything they could ever want and more, and that the food in Jannah was 1,000 times better than the food of this life. And so the Muslims were patient. Not a single Muslim gave up. Not a single Muslim went back to the Kuffar and said he would listen to them and leave Islam. They knew that even if their bodies were getting weaker, their hearts were getting stronger because of their faith. Finally, one day, 5 men from the Kuffar had had enough of the boycott. "This agreement is really unfair and oppressive," they said. "How can we eat and fill our bellies with food and drink while we know that Muhammad and the Muslims are starving? No matter what, they're still our people, and some of them are our relatives. We have to end this." So the next day, the 5 men went to where the people of Mecca would gather. One of them called out saying, "Is it fair that we eat and clothe ourselves while people from our relatives are dying from hunger, unable to buy or sell? This unjust boycott canceled, and we have nothing to do with this evil agreement." Meanwhile, Prophet Muhammad had told his uncle Abu Talib to tell the people of Mecca to go check on the paper with the boycott rules. The Prophet Muhammad said that the angel Jibril had come down and had told him that they would find the paper had been eaten by the ants. So Abu Talib went to the people of Mecca. He said, "I have come to know from Muhammad that Allah has sent the ants to eat the paper you've hung at the Kaaba, except for the word Allah. If Muhammad has spoken wrongfully and lied, we will turn him over to you. But if it turns out that he is right, and he has said the truth, then this boycott should be cancelled." The Kuffar agreed, and they checked on the paper, and what did they see? The ants had eaten all of the paper except the words Bismikallahumma, in the name of Allah. The Kuffar realized that Allah was the one who did this, so they stopped their boycott. And even though the Kuffar had seen this miracle with their very own eyes, they still refused to believe.